Does your cat knock things off tables? You set down a glass. Your cat walks over, looks at it, looks at you, and pushes it right off the edge. You've probably seen it 100 times, maybe 1,000. The pen, the remote, your phone, that glass of water you just poured, all of it swept onto the floor with one calm, deliberate paw. Most people say the same thing. My cat's a jerk. And honestly, it does look like it. There's something almost theatrical about the way they do it. That slow, purposeful push, the eye contact, the total lack of remorse afterward. But here's what nobody tells you. Your cat isn't being a jerk. They're not bored. And they're definitely not doing it to annoy you. What's actually happening when that paw reaches out is something that goes back millions of years. And by the time we get to number 7, you'll understand why the most annoying thing your cat does might be the most intelligent. It turns out your cat isn't breaking things. They're solving problems. And you just happen to be standing nearby when the experiment gets messy. Let's start with the obvious explanation that's wrong. 1. They're not doing it for attention, at least not the way you think. The internet loves this take. Your cat knocks things off the table because they learned it gets a reaction. You gasp, you run over, you say their name, and now they've got exactly what they wanted. Attention, stimulus, entertainment. There's a grain of truth in this. Cats do learn cause and effect. If pushing a glass makes the human leap off the couch and yell, that's a pretty interesting result. But here's the thing. Cats who have never gotten a reaction still knock things off tables. Cats in empty rooms with no audience at all still do it. Kittens do it the first time they encounter an object on an elevated surface, long before they've learned anything about human reactions. If attention were the whole answer, the behavior would only happen when you're watching. But it doesn't. It happens when you're asleep, when you're in another room, when nobody's home. Your cat pushes things off surfaces regardless of whether anyone is there to see it. That means the behavior exists independently of you. It's not a performance. It's not manipulation. Something else is driving it, and that something is built into the hardware your cat was born with. 2. They're running physics experiments. Seriously. This sounds ridiculous, but stay with me, because what your cat is doing with that paw is closer to scientific inquiry than you'd ever guess. Cats are predators. Their survival in the wild depended on understanding exactly how objects move. A mouse darting left, a bird changing direction, a lizard dropping off a branch. Every prey animal moves differently, and a cat who couldn't predict movement was a cat who didn't eat. Dr. Saho Takagi and colleagues at Kyoto University conducted a study in 2016 on feline understanding of cause and effect. They found that cats demonstrate a functional grasp of basic physics. Specifically, cats expect objects to behave according to gravity and show surprise, measurable, observable surprise, when objects don't follow expected physical rules. Your cat's paw tapping that pen to the edge of the table? That's a test. How heavy is this? How does it move when I push it? What happens when it reaches the edge? Does it fall straight or tumble? Does it make noise? Does it bounce? Every push is data collection. Your cat is building a model of how objects in their environment behave, not consciously, the way a scientist would, instinctively, the way a predator must, because a cat who understands how things move is a cat who can predict where prey will go before it gets there. When that glass shatters on your kitchen floor, your cat wasn't being destructive. They were finishing an experiment. And honestly, the data came back great. Object fell, made a loud noise, broke into pieces, liquid spread in a pattern. Human appeared from nowhere making sounds. Lots of new information, excellent session. And hey, if you're starting to see your cat less as a vandal and more as a tiny physicist, hit that like button and subscribe. That's how we get these videos to more cat owners who want to understand the weird genius behind their cat's worst habits. 3. The tap is a hunting technique. Watch your cat's paw next time they're about to push something. They don't just shove it. They tap it first. Light touches, little exploratory pats, then a slightly harder push, then another, then off the edge. That sequence isn't random. It's a hunting pattern, and it maps almost perfectly onto how cats interact with prey they've caught. When a cat catches a small animal, they don't always kill it immediately. They often bat it around first, tap it with a paw, let it move, tap again. Watch the response. This looks cruel to human eyes, but it serves a critical function. The cat is testing whether the prey is still dangerous. A mouse that bites, a snake that strikes, a beetle that pinches. One wrong grab, and the hunter becomes the injured. The tap-tap-push sequence on your table is the same motor pattern. Your cat's paw treats the pen exactly the way it would treat a stunned mouse. Is it alive? Does it move on its own? What happens if I push it this way? What about that way? And then the final push, the kill shot in hunting terms, sends it off the edge. Your cat doesn't distinguish between a pen and prey at the motor level. The same neural pathways fire, the same paw movements execute. The object is just a stand-in for something that, in another life, would have been dinner. 4. Elevated surfaces make it irresistible. Here's a detail most people never connect. Your cat doesn't knock things off the floor. They almost exclusively do it from elevated surfaces. Tables, counters, shelves, desks. Why? Because height changes the physics. An object on the floor doesn't go anywhere interesting when you push it. It slides, maybe rolls a bit, boring, but an object on a table has potential energy. Push it to the edge, and suddenly gravity takes over. It accelerates, it falls, it hits something, it bounces, rolls, shatters, splashes. The outcome is dramatically more complex than anything that happens on the floor. For a brain wired to track moving objects with extreme precision, the difference between floor push and table push is like the difference between watching a still photograph and watching a movie. One is flat, the other has action, speed, trajectory, and an unpredictable ending. Your cat is drawn to elevated surfaces, not just because they like high ground, although they do. They're drawn to the objects on those surfaces because the potential for interesting results is exponentially higher. Every counter, every shelf, every desk is a laboratory, and everything sitting on it is an experiment waiting to happen. This is also why your cat seems especially attracted to objects near edges. An object in the center of the table is boring, stable, nothing happens when you tap it. But an object close to the edge, one good push, and there's a show. Your cat can read that proximity. They know how close something is to the point of no return, and that's exactly where they direct their attention. 5. They don't understand that you care about the object. Here's where the frustration usually lives for owners. They knocked my grandmother's vase off the shelf. They must know it was important. They didn't. They had no idea. Cats don't assign emotional or financial value to objects. A $200 vase and a 50-cent pen are identical in their eyes. Both are objects on a surface. Both have weight, shape, and proximity to an edge. Neither has sentimental meaning. Neither is important. The concept doesn't exist in their framework. This is also why punishment after the fact does absolutely nothing. You come home, the vase is shattered. You yell at your cat. Your cat stares at you blankly, not because they're defiant, because there is no connection in their brain between the object on the floor and the noise you're making right now. The event is over. The data was collected hours ago. Your anger is arriving at a party that ended before lunch. The only way to protect valuable objects from your cat's research program is to remove them from the lab. If it's on a surface your cat can reach, it's in play. That's not a training failure. That's a reality of sharing your home with an animal whose paws are wired to test everything within reach. You can't convince your cat that the vase matters. You can only move the vase. 6. Some cats do it more because they're understimulated. Okay, here's the part that might actually be on you. Not all cats knock things off tables with the same frequency. Some do it occasionally, some do it constantly. And the cats who do it the most? They're usually the ones who aren't getting enough of what the behavior is a substitute for. Remember, the knocking behavior runs on hunting software. Tap, test, push, track. It's a predatory sequence, and a cat who gets regular high-quality play, the kind that simulates real hunting, already has an outlet for those circuits. The pen on the table is less interesting when there's a feather toy doing convincing prey impressions for 50 minutes a day. But a cat who spends all day in an apartment with no interactive play, no puzzle feeders, no hunting simulation, their predatory brain has nowhere to go. The energy builds. The instinct has no target, and eventually, the pen on the counter starts looking like the most interesting thing in the room, because it is. It's the only thing that moves when you touch it. My cat's table clearing phase peaked during a week when I was too busy to play with him properly. By day 4, he'd moved from pens to full water glasses. By day 6, he pushed my headphones off the desk while making direct eye contact. That wasn't spite. That was a bored predator escalating because the lab was the only entertainment available. I started doing real play sessions again. The experiments slowed down dramatically, not stopped. He's still a cat, but the urgency dropped off because the itch was being scratched somewhere else. If your cat is knocking everything off every surface every single day, before you get frustrated, ask yourself when the last real play session was. The answer might explain the crime spree. 7. The push is how your cat makes sense of a world they can't control. Here's what everything on this list has been leading to, and it's the part that changes how you see that paw reaching for your water glass. Your cat lives in your world, not theirs. They didn't choose the furniture. They didn't pick the objects on the shelves. They didn't decide the layout of the kitchen or the height of the counters, or what sits on your desk. Every physical element of their environment was chosen by you. They just live in it. And for an animal whose survival depends on understanding exactly how their environment works, that's a problem, because understanding doesn't come from looking. It comes from interacting, touching, testing, manipulating. A cat who just observes the objects around them has a map with no depth, but a cat who pushes, taps, and sends things crashing to the floor, they have data. They know what's heavy and what's light, what rolls and what shatters, what makes noise and what disappears silently, what brings the human running and what goes unnoticed. Every object your cat has ever knocked off a table is an object they now understand. They've tested it, they've cataloged the results, and that information gets filed away in a brain that evolved to survive by knowing exactly how the physical world works. Your cat knocks things off tables because they're not a passive resident of your home. They're an active participant in a physical world they didn't design. And the only way they have to understand that world, the only tool evolution gave them, is a paw and the willingness to push. That water glass wasn't destruction. It was curiosity applied with the only instrument available. Your cat isn't a jerk. Your cat is an animal who refuses to live in a world they don't understand. And every object they send to the floor is proof that they're still trying to figure out a universe that was never built for them, but that they've decided to make their own anyway. That's not bad behavior. That's a small mind doing everything it can to make sense of a big world. And honestly, most of us could stand to knock a few things off the table once in a while ourselves.